friends, how are you doing today? My name is Mary and this is Happily Ever Esch. So today I am doing a review of Being Mortal by Dr. Atul Gawande. I've been saying that I'm going to do this video for quite a while, so I finally have gotten around to doing it. And so what I want to do with my review videos is I would like to review whatever book that I am wanting to share and talk more about. Then I would like to do books that I have read, so kind of maybe recommendations, similar books to the book that I'm reviewing, and then also things that I would like to read to kind of expand my knowledge, or books that I think I would enjoy based on the book. So maybe I'll call it like review, recommend, read, I don't know, but I just kind of like to add some extra things into the review portion of my videos that I do like this. So yeah, I am reviewing Being Mortal by Dr. Atul Gawande. This is definitely my favorite book that I've read this year so far. And this is Dr. Gawande's experiences with death as a doctor, and kind of him talking about and exploring the idea of how America especially has over-medicalized the process of death. Everyone dies. It's a natural part of living a human life, or just a life in general. You know, animals die, plants die. It's part of living. It's part of the living experience, and how we do ourselves a disservice by making it this medicalized and almost in some cases torturous process. I really appreciated how Dr. Gawande is so humble and honest about his experiences as being a doctor, about not always having the best understanding of what his job as a physician is. He talks a lot about how he's had to learn and grow, and he's still learning and growing, and he just would like the profession as a whole to move towards learning more and growing more about how to deal with dying patients, and how to kind of face and confront morality, your own morality, because when we talk about death, when we talk about dying, it makes us as people uncomfortable and afraid, because the fact that we are mortal is a scary thing sometimes. But just that as doctors and people who work with elderly or terminally ill people, so not just doctors, social workers, caregivers, family members, you know, this is something that's going to affect all of us, and something that we need to be talking about and having conversations about, and just being more open and honest with one another. So Dr. Gawande talks not only about elderly patients, but also about terminally ill patients. He does a great job of talking about elderly care, and in particular doctors for geriatrics, and how this keeps seeming to go down and down on priority lists, but more people are aging and are going to be needing doctors who specifically cater to the care of elderly people, helping prevent falls, and, you know, just the care of elderly patients. He talks about kind of the evolution of nursing homes, of assisted living facilities, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, how we could be better. And his main point in that is that as we age, and as we get to the point where we can't always take care of ourselves, that safety shouldn't always be the main priority. That there's good reason for it to be, but that as people we need purpose, and we need reasons to live, and we need things to look forward to and strive for, and that doesn't change because you're an elderly person. And how can we have safe, comfortable places for elderly patients, but also give these people a purpose? And, you know, he's saying, like, I want to have a purpose. I've been a doctor and a father and a son, and I've done all these things. And just because I am 80 or 90 years old and my body is starting to wear out doesn't mean that I as a person lose the need to have a purpose, and to have love, and to have human contact. It was just the way he talks about that, and also the way he highlights people who are doing assisted living and taking care of the elderly and hospice in such a good way, and highlighting that these are the good things that we're doing with our elderly or terminally ill patients, and not just saying, like, there's a problem, let's fix it. He also points out, like, look at these good things that we're doing, and, you know, it's never going to be perfect, but to try and to strive for, you know, better care for sick and dying people is important. And so in that, he also talks about terminally ill patients and hospice, why hospice is important. I just thought this book was beautifully written. It has a great mix of medical science, kind of social sciences, and also just real experience from people who care for the elderly and the dying. I think that this is a wonderful book for all people to read, especially if you are dealing with someone who is aging or is terminally ill. I also wanted to add, Dr. Gawande talks a lot about how he's not attacking medical professionals. Obviously he is one, but just that the system and the institutions as a whole need to be changed, and how we can do that, you know, through lawmaking, through different practices in our hospitals and nursing homes. You know, it's not an attack on the people who are doing this very important and hard work. And obviously he's a doctor, so he's just trying to say, like, let's recognize that there are some problems and what can we do to fix those and better serve our patients. I thought an interesting question that Dr. Gawande posed is what we are doing going to improve the well-being of the people we are serving? And are we serving the larger aims of a person's life? And kind of thinking about those questions and talking through those questions and just being open and honest and having these conversations, and even though they're uncomfortable, even though we don't like to talk about it, kind of pushing through. And so I listened to this on audiobook. The narrator did a wonderful job. I loved listening to it. I kept wanting to pick it back up. I want to read this book again. There's so many things I couldn't even touch on, but those were a lot of big picture things that I took away from the book, and that I hope has maybe somewhat convinced you that you should read it too. So some books I would like to recommend that I have read that have given me similar feelings, or I think might be good discussion pieces alongside of Being Mortal. The first being Britt Marie Was Here. This is by Frederick Bachman. This is a story of a woman who, she's not really middle-aged. She's more like in her 60s, and she's kind of having this life crisis. There's lots of life changes for her. It talks a lot about purpose, what her purpose is, what she wants to do with the rest of her life. A lot of reflection on her life, what's made her happy, what's not made her happy, and so I think this was a beautifully written story. I didn't care for the ending, but I liked Frederick Bachman's writing style, and I liked his conversation on purpose, and on what we need to have a purposeful life, and how we should work towards being happy and being fulfilled. And so I thought this was, for like the first 3/4 of it, a wonderful book, and I think that if you're wanting some of those themes in fiction and to explore those themes in fiction, this is a great place to do it. Next book I would like to recommend that gave me similar vibes, and I actually was reading it kind of in conjunction or alongside Being Mortal, is Tales of Accidental Genius by Simon Van Buie. All of these stories kind of deal with purpose in life and what we do to have impacts on other people's lives, even when they're small things. But in particular, the story The Goldfish dealt with an elderly man, and I was reading it, like I said, while I was listening to Being Mortal, and that just kind of, it just struck such a chord, reading about this man's life and kind of exploring his headspace as an elderly man, living by himself. Doesn't have a lot of company, and this boy comes into his life and does a very compassionate thing for him, but it was just a good story to read alongside and kind of explore some of those ideas in a fiction work. And then the last one that I have to recommend is Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. This is a story about a preacher or a pastor who is writing a letter to his young son because he is dying. He knows that he's dying from just his body wearing out. He's still be able to live his life and be around his family, but he knows the end is coming, and he knows he's not going to be able to see his son grow up. So this is him just writing letters, thinking about his life, thinking about his faith, thinking about things that he wants to be able to pass on to his son. This does deal with God and faith and a life lived in faith, but I don't think that you have to be a Christian to enjoy this book. In fact, I've heard other people say that they aren't believers and they did enjoy Gilead, because the writing is so beautiful and the musings are on life, I think, and the soul and the body and life experiences can be applicable to all people. And so I thought this story was beautiful. It explores similar themes that Being Mortal does, and I think that this would be a great one to read if you enjoyed Being Mortal, or to read them side by side. And I thought this book was absolutely beautiful. It's definitely a slow burner, but it's just, the writing is absolutely beautiful, and the story as well is just, it's absolutely lovely, and I think that it would complement well with Being Mortal. And now I'd like to share some books that I would like to read based on my enjoyment of Being Mortal, and just from what I've heard from other people. Some of these are recommendations, and also just books that I think would have a similar kind of taste. The first being When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. This is Paul's memoir about being a surgeon, about being a writer, and also about having a terminal illness. And Paul actually passed away while writing this, or after writing this, I'm not sure, but this just sounds like it is going to be absolutely riveting. More personal experiences with dealing with terminal illness, personal experiences with being a doctor. I think that this sounds right, so similar to Being Mortal, but also just going to be so different because of the perspective. Dr. Atul Gawande actually blurbed the back saying it was rattling, heartbreaking, and ultimately beautiful. The two young Dr. Kalanithi's memoir is proof that the dying are the ones who have the most to teach us about life. I'm so excited to read this. I know it's going to be a hard read, but I think it's going to be such an important read, and I'm very excited to get to this. Next, I would like to read is The Death of Ivan Illich. I think I said that I was going to read this, and I picked it up a couple times, but just couldn't get into it. It wasn't the right moment. But Dr. Gawande actually talks about the death of Ivan Illich kind of as a case study in his book. And so I would really just like to get to this, to read it, and kind of see what my experiences are with this work also, and what I will get from it after reading about Dr. Gawande's experience with this work. So I'm excited to get to this, and this is about a dying man who kind of suddenly becomes ill, and kind of what he really wants out of life. And Atul Gawande even talks about how Leo Tolstoy understood something so much more about death than we do today in our modern medicalized society. So I'm kind of like, what is that? I want to know and experience the work for myself. And the last one I would like to get to is When Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, Lessons from the Crematorium, I think is what the title of that is, and I'll link it down below because I can't remember what the author's name is, but really from a girl in a book heard me talking about Being Mortal in one of my videos and said that I should definitely read this. This one sounds, again, dealing with death, dying, how we treat the dying and physically dead bodies. Also just dealing with these themes of mortality and death, but from obviously a very different perspective as someone who's working in a crematorium. So again, one that I'm really excited to get to and to read from this perspective about these things. I would love to know if you plan on reading Being Mortal, if you have any book recommendations that you think I would enjoy based on what I've said in this video, or if you would like to discuss some of the themes in Being Mortal. I'm excited to chat to you guys in the comments. I hope that you all are having a great day, and I hope to talk to you guys very soon. Bye.